The stars had always seemed peaceful too. She stood at her office window and watched them twinkle in the night sky of New Providence. For 12 years, she had served as governor of this small colony world. 12,000 people called this planet home. They were farmers, teachers, doctors, and children. They had built something beautiful here on the edge of known space. The Galactic Union had given humanity this world 50 years ago. It was not the best planet. It was far from everything. The soil was difficult. The winters were long, but humans had made it work. They always did. Smiled as she watched the lights of the colony below. Families were having dinner. Children were doing homework. Old Mister was probably telling his war stories to anyone who would listen, even though humans had not fought a real war in generations. The Galactic Union had promised them peace. They had promised protection. All humanity had to do was follow the rules, stay quiet, and be good citizens of the galaxy. Then the sky turned red. Saw the first ship break through the clouds, then another, then dozens more. They were not Union ships. These vessels were dark and covered in sharp angles. They looked like insects made of metal and hate. The warning sirens began to scream across the colony. Her communication officer burst through the door. His face was white with fear. "Governor, we are receiving a transmission. They call themselves the Dominion. They are demanding our complete surrender." Had heard stories about every species in the galaxy had heard stories. They were slavers, conquerors. They came from beyond Union space and took whatever they wanted. The Union had treaties with them, arrangements. They agreed to stay away from Union worlds, and the Union agreed to look the other way when they took others. But New Providence was a Union world. The treaty should have protected them. "Get me a channel to Union Command," ordered. The officer shook his head. "They destroyed our main communication relay first. We cannot reach anyone." Felt her heart sink. Of course they did. They were not stupid. They knew exactly what they were doing. They had chosen this colony because it was far away, because no one would come to help, because 12,000 humans were not worth starting a war over. Outside, she could see the landing craft touching down at the edges of the colony. Soldiers poured out of them. They were tall creatures with hard shells and too many limbs. They moved like the insects they resembled, fast and without mercy. The screaming started soon after. Gathered her people in the central agricultural complex. It was the largest building in the colony, built strong to store their harvests. It was not a fortress, but it was all they had. "We have no weapons," said her security chief. He was an old man who had never fired a gun in his life. None of them had. The Union did not allow humans to have military equipment. They said it was for everyone's safety. Looked at the faces around her. Mothers holding their children, farmers with dirt still on their hands, teachers who had been grading papers an hour ago. These were not soldiers. These were ordinary people. But they were also humans. "We have farming equipment," said. "We have mining tools. We have our hands and our minds and our stubborn refusal to give up. The want slaves. Let us show them that humans make very poor slaves." Something changed in the room. Fear was still there, but something else grew alongside it. Something older. Something that came from a time before humans had joined the Union, before they had learned to be peaceful and quiet and tame. They attacked the complex that night. They expected easy prey. They had conquered dozens of worlds. Soft species always surrendered. Soft species always broke. They were not prepared for what they found. Old Mister killed 3 soldiers with a harvesting blade before they brought him down. Sarah, a school teacher, led a group of children through the ventilation system to safety while the adults held the line. Discovered that mining explosives worked very well against armor. The neural compliance collars they used to control their slaves kept failing. They would clamp them around human necks, and the humans would just keep fighting. The scientists could not understand it. Human brain chemistry was too wild. too full of strange chemicals that surged and burned and refused to submit. On the second day, managed to find old communication parts in a storage room. She worked through the night, her hands bleeding, her eyes burning. She was not an engineer. She did not know if this would work, but she had to try. On the third day she finished. A small beacon, weak, probably useless, but it was something. She recorded her message with shaking hands. "This is New Providence Colony. We are under attack by the Dominion. 12,000 civilians. We have no military assets, no weapons, no ships. We have held out for 3 days, but we cannot last much longer. Please, anyone who can hear this, we need rescue. We need help, please." She sent the beacon into space and prayed. The message reached Union Central Command within hours. Diplomats read it and frowned. Military officers calculated the risks and shook their heads. Politicians discussed the implications and decided that one small human colony was not worth a war with the. They sent back nothing. But the beacon traveled farther than new. It reached beyond Union space. It reached into a region that official maps marked with warnings and quarantine symbols, a region the Union pretended did not exist. In that forbidden space, aboard a massive warship called the Iron Revenant, a man named Cole listened to desperate words. He was human, but not like the humans of the Union. His face was. His eyes were hard. He had been born in the darkness between stars, raised on worlds that would kill a Union citizen in minutes. He was what humans became when they refused to be tamed. Around him stood his crew, humans with muscles built in high gravity, reptilian with teeth like knives, massive warriors with 6 arms and no fear. They were the exiles, the ones the Union wanted everyone to forget. Cole turned to his crew. A smile crossed his face. 12,000 humans need rescue, he said. Plot a course, full speed. His lieutenant, a named Vex, clicked her teeth with anticipation. They have 40 warships in that system, Captain. Cole's smile only grew wider. Then this will be a fair fight. The Iron Revenant turned toward New Providence. Behind it, 6 more ships followed. They were coming. And they were not coming to negotiate. The Galactic Union had a secret. It was not written in any official document. It was not taught in any school. But every species in the Union knew it in their bones. They were afraid of humans. When humanity first reached the stars 50 years ago, the Union sent scientists to study them. What they found terrified them. Earth was classified as a Category 12. This was the highest danger rating possible. The Union had only discovered 3 other Category 12 worlds in all their centuries of exploration. On those worlds, no intelligent life had ever developed. The conditions were simply too harsh. But Earth was different. Earth had created humans. The Union scientists made a long list of things that should have killed humanity. The gravity was crushing. The atmosphere was filled with a toxic gas called oxygen. The planet was covered with predators. It had extreme temperatures, violent weather, and constant natural disasters. The star it orbited was unstable and bombarded the surface with radiation. And yet humans had not only survived. They had become the dominant species on their world. The scientists studied human biology and found more horrors. Humans could survive injuries that would kill most species 3 times over. Their bones could break and heal stronger than before. They could lose entire limbs and keep functioning. They had a chemical in their brains called adrenaline that turned them into temporary killing machines when threatened. But the worst discovery was something called persistence hunting. Most predators in the galaxy chased their prey and caught it quickly. If they failed, they gave up. Humans did not give up. They would chase an animal for hours, days. They would follow it until its body simply gave out from exhaustion. Then they would walk up to the collapsed creature and kill it. Humans did not run fast. They did not have claws or fangs. They won by simply refusing to stop. The Union leaders held an emergency meeting. They had a problem. Humans were friendly, cooperative, eager to join galactic society, but they were also, by galactic standards, terrifying monsters. The solution was simple. They would civilize humanity. Humans were welcomed into the Union with open arms. They were given colony worlds and trade agreements. They were offered education and technology, but quietly, carefully, the Union began to change them. Humans were discouraged from physical activities. Sports were considered primitive. Military training was unnecessary since the Union would protect them. Eating meat was barbaric, so synthetic food was provided. Humans were taught that their instincts were shameful things to be overcome. Within 2 generations, most humans in Union space had become exactly what the Union wanted: soft, peaceful, tame. But not all of them. Some humans saw what was happening. They refused to forget what they were. They rejected the Union's gentle cage and left for the edges of known space. There they found others like them. There were reptilian predators from a world of endless deserts and acid rain. There were giants from a planet with gravity 3 times the Union standard. There were beings made of living rock from a world of volcanoes and poison gas. All of them had been told they were too dangerous for polite society. All of them had been pushed to the margins. All of them were tired of being treated like monsters. Together, they built something new in a region of space called the Hellion Expanse. The Union declared the area quarantined. They put warnings on every map. They told their citizens that the expanse was full of dangerous criminals and savage beasts. They never mentioned that those savages had built a civilization of their own. Captain Cole was born on a station in the Hellion Expanse. His parents had fled Union space before he was born. They had wanted their son to grow up knowing what humans really were. He learned to fight before he learned to read. He trained in gravity twice what Union humans could handle. He ate meat and ran and climbed, and did all the things the Union had tried to breed out of his species. By the time he was 30, he commanded the Iron Revenant. His crew was his family. They came from a dozen different species, all of them born on, all of them forged in conditions that would kill a Union citizen. Now they raced through hyperspace toward New Providence. 7 ships in total. It was not a large fleet by galactic standards. They had 40 vessels waiting for them. But numbers did not tell the whole story. Cole stood on the bridge of the Iron Revenant and studied his crew. His first officer was Vex, a female with scales the color of blood. She had killed her first enemy when she was 12 years old. His weapons officer was who could tear through a metal door with his bare hands. His pilot was Maya Santos, a human woman who had once flown through an asteroid field while bleeding from 3 wounds. These were his people, not the soft humans of the Union, not the politicians who had abandoned New Providence. These were the real thing. A communication came through from one of the other ships. Captain of the Stone Fury, a vessel made of the same living rock as its crew. Cole's voice rumbled like grinding boulders. Union monitoring stations have detected our movement. They are sending warnings to Central Command. Cole smiled. Let them watch. Let them see what we do. Maybe they will learn something. They have 40 ships. I know. You seem pleased by this. Cole looked out at the stars streaking past. Somewhere ahead, 12,000 humans were fighting for their lives with farming tools and mining equipment. They were holding the line against professional slavers with nothing but stubbornness and hope. They were proving that 50 years of Union conditioning could not erase what humans really were. They think they are the predators here, Cole said. They think they found easy prey, soft targets, helpless civilians. He turned back to his crew. Every face showed the same expression: hunger, anticipation, the look of hunters who had found their quarry. Let us show them what happens when predators attack a species. Let us remind the galaxy why they fear us. The ships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the New Providence system. Ahead, The fleet waited in orbit around the colony, 40 vessels bristling with weapons, an overwhelming force by any reasonable measure. Vex looked at the tactical display and made a sound that might have been a laugh. They have no idea what is coming. Cole opened a communication channel. His voice would reach every ship in the system, friend and enemy alike. Dominion forces, this is Captain Cole of the Coalition vessel Iron Revenant. You have attacked a human colony. You have 12 minutes to withdraw from this system. The response came quickly. The commander sounded amused. 7 ships against 40. You are either brave or stupid human, perhaps both. Cole leaned forward in his chair. His smile had no warmth in it. Then you will learn why the Galactic Union keeps us in quarantine. He cut the channel and turned to his crew. All ships attack formation. We are going in fast and close. No mercy, no hesitation. Those are our people down there. The 7 ships of the Coalition surged forward toward the fleet. The battle for New Providence had begun. Governor had not slept in 3 days. Her clothes were torn and stained with blood. Some of it was hers. Most of it was not. They had attacked the agricultural complex again last night. They had come with more soldiers and heavier weapons. They had been certain that this time the humans would finally break. They had been wrong. Looked around the main hall of the complex. Her people were exhausted but still standing. Farmers had turned into fighters. Teachers had become tacticians. Even the children helped, carrying supplies and delivering messages through the small spaces where adults could not fit. They had lost people, good people. Mr. had died defending the eastern entrance. Dr. Williams had been killed treating the wounded when the broke through a window. Young Tommy, only 16 years old, had thrown himself on a grenade to save his friends. But for every human who fell, they made the pay. The enemy commander had expected this to be easy. They had conquered dozens of worlds. They had taken millions of slaves. Soft species always surrendered once they saw there was no hope. But humans did not seem to understand that there was no hope. They kept fighting. They kept resisting. They refused to submit even when submission was the logical choice. Commander stood aboard his flagship and tried to understand what was happening. He had lost almost 200 soldiers to these farmers. 200. His neural compliance collars did not work on them. His psychological warfare tactics failed. Everything he knew about breaking conquered species was useless against these strange creatures. He watched a recording from the ground assault. A human female, clearly injured and barely able to stand, had charged at 3 soldiers with nothing but a metal pipe. She had killed one and wounded another before they finally stopped her. Why would she do that? She had to know she would die. Any rational being would have surrendered. His science officer offered an explanation. Commander, the human brain produces unusual chemicals under stress. They seem to override rational thought. The humans are not choosing to resist. They are biologically incapable of giving up. Made a clicking sound of frustration. Then we will burn them from orbit, prepare the weapons. If they will not be slaves, they will be examples. His officers began the preparations. Heavy plasma weapons that would turn the colony into ash. A message to every species in the galaxy about what happened to those who the Dominion. But then a sensor technician made a sound that had never heard from one of his own kind. A sound of pure, absolute terror. Commander, 7 contacts just exited hyperspace. Turn to the display. 7 ships, small fleet, nothing to worry about. Union reinforcements, they dare to interfere. No, Commander, these ships, they are not Union vessels. They are broadcasting identification codes that, the technician paused, checking his readings twice. They identify themselves as the Coalition. The bridge went silent. Every knew that name. Every spacefaring species knew that name. It was spoken in whispers. It was used to frighten children into obedience. The quarantined ones, the species too dangerous for civilized space. And they were here. A communication came through, a human voice calm and clear. Dominion forces, this is Captain Cole of the coalition vessel Iron Revenant. You have attacked a human colony. You have 12 minutes to withdraw from this system. Forced himself to respond. He would not show fear to these savages. 7 ships against 40. You are either brave or stupid human. The reply came without hesitation. Then you will learn why the Galactic Union keeps us in quarantine. The channel closed, ordered his fleet into defensive formation, 40 ships against 7. The math was simple, they were committing suicide. But then the 7 ships began to move, and realized that nothing about this would be simple. The vessels did not behave like normal ships. They did not stay at safe range and exchange fire. They accelerated directly toward the fleet at speeds that should have killed their crews from the force alone. They are charging us, his tactical officer said in disbelief. They are coming in close, too close. Our weapons are not designed for this range. The Iron Revenant reached the first cruiser in less than a minute. Instead of firing from a distance, it got so close that the 2 ships almost touched. Then it unleashed weapons that the galaxy had banned centuries ago. Short-range devastation. No elegance, no precision, just raw, brutal destruction. The cruiser broke apart. The other ships followed the same pattern. They dove into the formation like wolves into a flock of sheep. They took damage. They did not care. They kept coming. On the ground, the colonists heard the battle through their damaged communication systems. Gathered her people around the speakers, listening to the chaos in orbit. "What is happening up there?" someone asked. Heard explosions, screaming, commanders shouting orders that no one seemed to be following, and through it all, that calm human voice giving commands. "Flank left, Stone Fury target their engines. Vex take us through their formation. Yes, through it. They will not expect that." A young woman named Sarah looked at with tears in her eyes. "Who are they? Who is helping us?" Before could answer, another voice came through the system. It was different from the battle chatter. Someone had opened a channel directly to the colony. "New Providence Colony, this is the coalition. Ground forces are incoming. Hold your positions. We are coming to get you." The colonists looked at each other. After 3 days of fighting alone, after watching friends die, after giving up all hope of rescue, someone was coming. Felt something wet on her cheeks. She was crying. She had not cried since this began. "They came," she whispered. "Someone actually came." Outside, through the dirty windows of the agricultural complex, she saw lights streaking down through the atmosphere. 3 of them, diving toward the colony at impossible speeds. The ground commander saw them too. He ordered his remaining soldiers to form defensive positions. Standard tactics, overwhelming firepower. Show the enemy that landing would mean death. They landed anyway. Their doors opened. And what came out was nothing like the soft humans that had been fighting. These humans were bigger, harder. They moved with a fluid grace that spoke of training in harsh conditions. They carried weapons that made the rifles look like toys. And they were not alone. Reptilian soldiers flowed out beside them, their scales gleaming in the firelight. Massive warriors followed, each one carrying weapons that a normal soldier would need a vehicle to move. They opened fire. They did not slow down. They crashed into the lines like a wave hitting sand. There was no elegant battle, no careful tactics, just violence fast and overwhelming. A human soldier took 3 shots to the chest and kept fighting. A warrior tore through armor with her claws. Picked up a soldier and used him as a weapon against his companions. The colonists watched through the windows. They had been fighting for 3 days. They had thought they understood battle. They understood nothing. In less than 20 minutes, the ground forces ceased to exist. They did not pause to celebrate. They secured the perimeter. They set up medical stations. They moved with the efficiency of people who had done this many times before. A human soldier approached the agricultural complex. His armor was dented and burned, but he walked like nothing had happened. He removed his helmet, revealing a face and tired eyes. "Governor," he asked. Stepped forward, "Yes." The soldier nodded. "Captain Cole sent us. Your people are safe now. The fleet is handling the rest." Looked at this man from another world. This human who looked like her but was so clearly different. "Thank you. We did not think anyone would come." The soldier almost smiled. "We always come. You are our people, even if the Union forgot that." Above them, in the darkness of space, the fleet was learning a lesson they would never forget. Commander had conquered 11 worlds. He had broken species that thought themselves warriors. He had turned proud civilizations into cattle. In 200 years of service to the Dominion, he had never known defeat. He was learning now. His tactical display had become a nightmare of red warning lights. The ships moved through his fleet like ghosts. They appeared from angles that should have been impossible. They struck at weak points that should have been hidden. They fought like they could read his mind. "Focus fire on the lead vessel," he ordered. "Bring down the Iron Revenant." 12 of his remaining ships turned their weapons on Cole's flagship. They unleashed everything they had. The combined firepower should have reduced any vessel to atoms. The Iron Revenant flew through the barrage and kept coming. Its shields failed. Its armor cracked. Entire sections of the ship were exposed to space. But it did not stop. It did not slow down. It aimed directly at its flagship like a blade seeking a heart. "They are insane," his tactical officer whispered. "No sane species would take this kind of damage and continue attacking." Finally understood something important. The Galactic Union had not quarantined these species because they were criminals or savages. The Union had quarantined them because they did not fight by civilized rules. Among normal species, warfare was almost ritualistic. Ships fought at long range. When one side took too much damage, they surrendered. Ground combat was rare because it was too costly. War was a negotiation with weapons. They did not negotiate. They came from worlds where everything was trying to kill them. They had evolved in environments where hesitation meant death. They did not understand the concept of acceptable losses because on there, every fight was to the death. The Iron Revenant reached flagship. Instead of firing from a safe distance, it positioned itself directly alongside, so close that the two ships were almost touching. Captain Cole's voice came through the communication system, calm, almost friendly. "You know what the problem is with your species, Commander. You have never had to fight for survival. You take what you want from weaker species. You have never met anything that could truly hurt you." The Iron Revenant opened fire. At this range, there was no defense. The plasma weapons burned through armor like it was paper, watched his bridge crew die around him. "We are different," Cole continued. "Our worlds tried to kill us every day. We had to earn every breath, every meal, every moment of peace. Do you know what that creates?" The flagship shook as another section exploded. Warning alarms screamed. Tried to reach the escape pods, but the path was blocked by fire. "It creates species that do not know how to give up. We do not surrender. We do not retreat. We do not stop until the fight is over." The communication ended. The flagship began to break apart. On the ground, the colonists of New Providence were witnessing something they would remember for the rest of their lives. The soldiers had secured the colony perimeter, but they did not rest. They kept moving through the ruins, hunting down every remaining soldier. They worked in teams, human and alien together, moving with a coordination that spoke of years of training. Governor walked among them, seeing how they operated. A human soldier with a bandage over his eye was still fighting. A warrior with a wound that would have put any Union citizen in a hospital for months simply wrapped it and kept going. And the colonists were helping. Old had picked up a fallen rifle. He did not know how to use it properly, but he was learning fast. Sarah was leading a group of teenagers through the colony, pointing out where soldiers were hiding. Even the children were helping, bringing water and ammunition to the soldiers. 3 days ago, these people had been farmers and teachers. Now they were fighters. A sergeant named Tor stopped beside. She was a human woman within her hair and scars on her hands. "Your people are impressive," Tor said. "They held out against for 3 days with no weapons and no training. That is not easy." Shook her head. "We just did what we had to do. We had no choice." Tor smiled. It was a warm smile, not the cold expression of a killer. That is what everyone says, but most species, when they have no choice, they surrender, they give up, they accept their fate. She looked at the colonists working alongside her soldiers. "Your people chose to fight, even when it was hopeless, even when logic said to submit. That is not something that can be taught. We are just ordinary people." "No," Torres put a hand on shoulder. "You are humans. There is nothing ordinary about that. The Union tried to make you forget, but you cannot breed out what we are. It is in our blood, our bones, our souls. When everything is lost, humans fight. It is what we do." Above them, the battle in space was ending. The fleet had been reduced to a handful of ships. They were not fighting anymore. They were running. The survivors fled toward the edge of the system, desperate to escape the nightmare they had stumbled into. Captain Cole did not pursue them. He let them go. Vex, his first officer, questioned this decision. "We could destroy them all, leave no witnesses." Cole shook his head. "I want witnesses. I want them to go back to the Dominion and tell everyone what happened here. I want every slaver in the galaxy to know that humans are no longer acceptable targets." He looked at the tactical display. Of the 40 ships that had attacked New Providence, only 4 remained. His own fleet had taken heavy damage. The Iron Revenant was barely holding together, but they had won. "Send a message to the colony," Cole ordered. "Tell them it is over." The message reached the surface minutes later. Heard it standing in the ruins of her colony, surrounded by her wounded people and their unexpected saviors. They were gone. They had survived. She fell to her knees and finally allowed herself to feel everything she had been holding back. The fear, the grief, the relief, the pride in what her people had accomplished. Around her, colonists were embracing each other, crying, laughing. Some were thanking the soldiers. Others were simply staring at the sky, trying to understand what had just happened. A landed nearby. The hatch opened and a man stepped out. He was tall and with eyes that had seen too much violence and hands that had dealt too much death. But when he looked at the colonists, his expression was gentle. Captain Cole walked through the crowd until he reached Governor. "Governor," he said, offering his hand to help her up, "I am sorry we could not get here sooner." Took his hand. His grip was strong but careful. "You came. That is more than anyone else did." Cole looked at the colonists around them, at the farmers holding weapons, at the teachers with bandages on their wounds, at the children who had seen things no child should see. "You held out for 3 days," he said, "against professional soldiers with farming equipment." He almost laughed. "I think you had this handled. We just made it a little faster." Shook her head. "We were about to die. They were going to burn us from orbit." "Maybe." Cole looked up at the sky where his damaged fleet orbited. "But you would have made them work for it. You would have fought until the last breath. That is what humans do." He turned back to her. "The Union tried to breed that out of you. They tried to make you soft and peaceful and tame. They almost succeeded." He gestured at the colonists around them. "But you cannot kill what we really are. You proved that today." Governor looked at her people, at what they had become, at what they had always been, buried under 50 years of Union conditioning. They were humans, and humans did not surrender. The Galactic Union Council chambers had not seen this much chaos in centuries. Diplomats shouted at each other across the Great Hall. Holographic displays showed footage from New Providence that had leaked despite all attempts at censorship. The carefully maintained order of galactic civilization was cracking. Counselor of the Collective rose from his seat. He was ancient, his skin wrinkled with age, his voice weak but still carrying across the chamber. This is a violation of every treaty we have established. They left their quarantine zone. They engaged a foreign power without authorization. They used banned weapons. Another counselor, unnamed, responded with equal anger. They saved 12,000 civilians that we abandoned. While we debated and calculated risks, humans were dying. They are savages, uncontrolled. This is exactly why we quarantined them in the first place. And now we see what those savages can do when someone actually needs help. The argument continued for hours. No resolution was reached. But outside the council chambers, the galaxy was already changing. The footage from New Providence spread across every network. Millions of beings watched the small fleet tear through the armada. They saw the ground forces moving like shadows through the colony. They watched colonists who had been farmers 3 days earlier fighting alongside the most feared warriors in the galaxy. The reactions varied by species. The soft species of the Union core worlds were horrified. They had built their civilization on the idea that violence was primitive, that advanced species had moved beyond such barbarism. New Providence proved that barbarism could still win. The outer worlds had a different reaction. Species that had been conquered by the species that had lost family to slavers, species that had asked the Union for help and been told that rescue was not worth the risk. They watched the footage with something that had been dead in them for generations. Hope. And among the Union's human population, the reaction was most dramatic of all. For 50 years, humans had been told that their heritage was something to be ashamed of. They had been taught to suppress their instincts, to reject their nature, to become civilized. Most had accepted this. Most had believed it. Now they watched Captain Cole stand on the ruins of New Providence and tell Governor that humans do not surrender. They watched farmers kill professional soldiers with harvesting tools. They watched children help coordinate a rescue that the entire Galactic Union had refused to attempt. Something stirred in them, something old, something their parents and grandparents had been taught to bury deep. It rose to the surface like a creature waking from a long sleep. On the colony world of Haven's Rest, a young human named David watched the footage for the 10th time. He had grown up following all the rules, eating synthetic food, avoiding physical activity, being exactly what the Union wanted him to be. Now he looked at his hands. They were soft, weak, the hands of someone who had never had to fight for anything. "I want to be like them," he said to no one in particular. "I want to remember what we are." He was not alone. Across dozens of colony worlds, humans began asking questions. Why were they forbidden from military service? Why were physical competitions discouraged? Why had the Union worked so hard to make them forget their heritage? Some of them began to change. They started exercising, training, eating real food instead of the synthetic substitutes. They formed groups and shared knowledge about their history, the history the Union had tried to erase. The Union authorities noticed. They sent diplomats to calm the situation. They issued statements reminding humans that they were valued members of galactic society, that their peaceful integration was a success story, that there was no need to return to primitive behaviors. The statements did not help. 3 weeks after the battle, Governor received a visitor on New Providence. The colony was still being rebuilt, but the people had refused to leave. This was their home. They had fought for it. They would not abandon it now. Captain Cole landed his shuttle near the agricultural complex. The Iron Revenant was still in orbit, undergoing repairs that would take months. He had refused to leave until he was sure the colony was safe. Met him at the landing pad. She looked different from when he had first seen her, stronger, harder. The softness was still there, but something else had joined it. "The Union has offered me asylum in the Hellion Expanse," she said. "They think I should leave before I cause more trouble." Cole smiled. "And what did you tell them?" "I told them no." Looked at the colonists working in the distance, rebuilding homes, planting crops, living their lives with a new fire in their eyes. Someone needs to stay. Someone needs to remind them what humans really are. Cole nodded. He had expected this answer. The Union spent 50 years trying to domesticate your people, trying to breed the out of you. They came very close to succeeding. He looked at a group of children playing nearby. They were not playing gentle Union games. They were wrestling, climbing, testing their bodies in ways that Union schools would have forbidden. "I think they failed," he said. Followed his gaze. "What happens now? The Union will not forget what you did. They will want revenge. Everything is going to change." "Yes," Cole turned back to her. "Everything is going to change. But change is not always bad. The galaxy needs to remember that there are species who will fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. They needed to learn that humans are not easy prey, and your people needed to remember who they are." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device. He handed it to. "A communication beacon. Direct line to the Hellion Expanse. If you ever need us, we will come." Took the beacon. It was heavier than she expected. "Why? Why do you care so much about people you have never met? Humans who gave up everything you believe in?" Cole was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer than she had ever heard it. "Because you are still our people. The Union told you to forget and you tried. But when everything was lost, you did not surrender. You fought. You proved that no matter how hard they try to change us, we are still humans. We are still children of a." He turned to walk back to his shuttle and take care of their own. 6 months later, the Galactic Union quietly amended its charter. Human citizens were now permitted to serve in military roles. Physical competition restrictions were lifted. The changes were presented as minor administrative adjustments. Everyone knew the truth. The quarantine around the Hellion Expanse officially remained in place, but enforcement became flexible. Human volunteers began arriving at the Expanse. Colony worlds requested advisors. A generation of humans rediscovered their heritage. The Dominion sent a formal protest about the destruction of their fleet. They demanded compensation. They threatened retaliation. Then they quietly pulled back all operations within 3 sectors of the Hellion Expanse. They never explained why. But everyone knew. For the first time in recorded history, they were afraid. On New Providence, life continued. The colony grew. New settlers arrived, humans who wanted to live somewhere that had not forgotten what they were. The agricultural complex became a memorial and a reminder. Governor served for another 20 years. She never left the colony. She never stopped teaching her people that peace was a choice, not a weakness. That being civilized did not mean being helpless. That the galaxy was vast and dangerous, but humans had survived worse. And in the dark spaces between stars, Captain Cole continued his work. His fleet grew. More ships, more species, more who refused to let the galaxy forget what they were capable of. The Union had wanted humanity to be tame, to be safe, to be just another species in the galactic community. They had nearly succeeded. But you cannot breed the out of a species born in fire and hardship. You cannot make predators into prey. You cannot teach humans to surrender. The galaxy was beginning to remember this. Some feared the change, some welcomed it. But everyone understood one truth. Humanity had woken up. And the stars would never be quite the same again.